It's time!
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's edition of Strikes and Submissions. My name is Dorian Wright. Here, my co-host Michael Daly. How you doing today, Mike?
I'm great, Dorian. Great to be with you. A ton to talk about. End of May here. I can't even believe it's the end of May. Don't get me started on that, but it's phenomenal to be on with you, my man.
Yeah, man. Weather's breaking. You know, I got the new braids. Had to get right.
Fresh.
This weather got me acting unusual today. But we gonna dive right into the good stuff today. You know, we just got the announcement not too long ago. Max Holloway, the Blessed Express, is back. He's not waiting for Ortega. He's not waiting for Volk. He's coming back, but he's going up against Yair. No slouch. That's gonna be a great fight, and we'll dive into it a little deeper when it comes around. You know, late July. I think it's the 17th. But what do you think about that fight? Do you like it? You don't like it?
I think it makes sense because Yair has been looking for a fight. I believe his last fight was 2019 against Jeremy Stevens. The one before that was the no contest. So he's been looking to get back after his suspension. And then Max Holloway, it seems like he's the odd man out in the featherweight division championship talk. So line those two guys up. Personally, I favor Max Holloway on May 27th. If you're going to ask me later on in July when that fight actually happens, I may change. I don't know. But as of right now, though, with the performance Max Holloway had against Calvin Kattar, I think he's going to be the heavy favorite, especially with such inactivity. But you know what? Max Holloway, he has to get in there with somebody, especially after Rodriguez, if his next fight will be for the title.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing about Yair, it sucks. Like you said, he hasn't fought in a couple years, but it wasn't like he got suspended for PEDs or some type of steroids. He got suspended because it was a violation of USADA. You didn't let them know where you are. They're showing up to your house to test you, and you're not at your house. Showing up to your gym, you're not at your gym, you're on vacation. 3 strikes, you're out. So happened to him 3 times apparently. Maybe he was ducking a test. Who knows? But moral of the story, he's back. Hopefully he's clean now. But yeah, like you said, the Blessed Express is going to be a heavy favorite. I think I saw a line that said minus 375. That's ridiculous because Yair's no slouch. Like his hands aren't as good as Max's, but I think Max's volume is just too much for anybody in the division, to be honest, except for Volk, I guess, because he beat him twice. But as far as the inactivity goes, I think he'll be okay. Won't be any real ring rust with him. Same thing with Max. You know, he doesn't want to wait for the Ultimate Fighter to air and then that fight get booked and then have them recover from their injuries and then fight him. I like Max staying active, not squatting on his title shot, because I know a lot of guys who would. Wink, wink, Colby Covington. But yeah, Nader, I mean, you don't want to come back and fight the best in the division or arguably the best in the division, but at the same time, who else is he gonna fight? Everyone else is either booked up or not really on his level. But we're gonna see. We'll talk more about it once the time comes. But for now, let's dive into the fight night that we just had last week. We had Cody Garbrandt go against Rob Font. Not to toot my own horn here, but I picked another main event right. I'm like 5-0 on the show. But how'd you like that card and overall the main event too?
Overall, it was a really awesome card. I thought it was well scheduled with the pairings, just top to bottom. One thing that I did like, and I want to see more of, are these fights starting at 4 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. Pacific. I like that late afternoon, or I guess mid-afternoon, and then it goes on to about 10 p.m. Eastern time, 10:30. It's not too late. I don't know. I really like the way it was set up, but talking about the fights themselves, the prelim card was amazing. Ben Rothwell, not that he's in the championship picture whatsoever, but I think this win over Chris Barnett, it may have saved any chances that he has of being a serious contender. And then just going up the card the start of it with Edmund Shabazian and Jack Hermanson. That was a
Good fight.
smoker. You had a bunch of really good quality fights that I think allowed it to stack up against most fight nights, if not the best of them.
Yeah, and I mean, you touched on it. I love the early start because when the main events roll around, like me and you, we love it, so we'll stay up and watch them. But a lot of the casual fans, I when I watch fights with people, sometimes they fall asleep. Um, I'm not humble. I'll be the first one to tell you I'm not humble. If I pick something right, you gonna know I picked it right.
Oh yeah.
Cause when I get it wrong, everyone lets me know I got it wrong. But yeah, I love the early starts, like you said. Um, Font did his thing, outboxed Cody just like I said he would. Cody tried to turn into a wrestler all of a sudden, but I don't really want to talk about that because that it was just a clear. I don't want to say a beat down. It wasn't
Mhm.
that bad, but Cody went on IG Live after and talked about he was fighting himself in the ring. His confidence was very low, and that's not something you want to hear coming from Cody. Um, so he has to work that out with himself. Maybe drop down to 25 and get a resurgence in his career. He's still young. He can do it. But let's talk about my girl, Carla Esparza. Can we give her the title shot? Let's not. I mean, I get it. Wei Lee was dominant. She had her reign. What was it, like 20 straight fights of wins or whatever?
Yes.
But the last person, or the first person to beat Rose, Carla Esparza, she's on like a 4 or 5 fight win streak right now. Who else does she have to beat to get the strap? And Rose even said she doesn't want to rematch Wei Lee right away because she just beat. We just saw that, and it wasn't close. It was a quick head kick, boom, drop. Wei Lee can argue it all she wants. She was out, but I want to see Carla Esparza get that next strawweight title shot. I don't know about you, man.
As she should. I think this fight against Jan, if Jan would have won, I don't think Jan would have gotten it because they might have favored someone like Joanna to get the next fight to face Rose. But Carla Esparza, man, she has been on a tear, and just the way she stopped Jan, it was terrific. What more does she have to do? That's something you said. That's something even Michael Bisping and Paul Felder talked about. She may be next in line, and if you give it to anybody else, what are you doing, UFC, if you don't give it to her? I would say her story is really powerful because she's someone that for so long I feel like has flown under the radar in the strawweight division, but the fact that she was able to beat Jan and then really put her presence out there that no, I am the next in line, I think that's going to help her. And also, I like Rose Namajunas a lot. She surprised me with that Zhang Wei Li knockout, but I think Carla Esparza has what it takes to beat her. And I know if you look at anyone in the top of the strawweight division, you can make that same argument for them. But with her wrestling, her striking ability, how she can just put it on girls, I think Carla Esparza has what it takes. Maybe not even just beat Rose, but make it a very competitive fight and something that Rose really hasn't seen. Because the thing with Rose is that either she's getting blown out or she is
Or
blowing
she's
people
blowing.
out.
Yeah, there's
There's
no in
not
between.
exactly, yeah, there's not really like an in between where it's like a Joanna Zhang Wei Li type of fight. I think Carla Esparza could bring her into deep waters and make it just a knockdown, drag out brawl.
And I'm glad you mentioned Joanna and Wei Lee because what better fight to make other than that rematch? It was fight of the year. Wei Lee, if she beats Joanna, okay, rightfully so, let her get her title shot right back. And if Joanna wins, because she stated that I'm only fighting in title shots or number one contender spots, I'm not building my way back up. Y'all know who I am. I done beat everybody already, and I agree with that to a certain extent. So I think we can match Rose against Carla, who already beat Rose, and then Wei Lee against Joanna, which we saw was a barn burner and fight of the year. You don't win fight of the year by accident. Like that's a great fight to make. I think like you said, Carlos Esparza has the tools to beat Rose. She's done it before. Obviously, Rose is a way different fighter now, but that wrestling that she put on Jan and all pre-fight All week they were talking about, oh, Jan striking, striking, striking. No one was talking about Carla Esparza's wrestling. She got her down with ease. First 10 seconds, I think, of the fight was just takedown and just beat her down. And then I'm looking like, wait a minute. The second round is going to go just like this. And just like I said, second round went just like this, mercifully stopped because she would have took a lot more damage than what she took if that kept going. But moving on, let's talk about a hot topic this week because I've been seeing it floating around, and this was rumored that Oscar De La Hoya had some big name fight coming, or he had some big name opponent. I'm coming back to boxing. And we're like, Oscar, you're 50. What are you doing? Who are you gonna fight? And Eddie Alvarez was rumored, but then one championship was like, no, Eddie's not fighting Oscar, and Eddie's like, I would, but nah, I'm not going to. And now we hear that one of the greatest MMA fighters ever, arguably the GOAT, right? George St. Pierre, and I know I give him a lot of flack on Twitter, but George St. Pierre is one of the greatest just people. Like, he's such a good guy, very disciplined. You won't find a bad thing about him. For him to want to fight Oscar De La Hoya, or box Oscar De La Hoya, was very interesting to me. I don't. Were you taken aback by that announcement, or how'd you take that?
I don't want to see this fight. Just point blank. I don't want to see it. The
Flat
reason
out.
why I don't want to see it, okay, George St. Pierre, for one, although I think he is or was an elite striker in MMA and arguably one of the best boxers in mixed martial arts, most specifically the UFC, it's just different. And also, not only the fact that he's going up against a sixth division world champion or a former sixth division world champion, he's going he will be challenging Father Time. And I know he's in tremendous shape as a 40-year-old, but hear me out, okay? Retired in November 2013, then returned in November 2017, and then hasn't competed in mixed martial arts since. And I know he's in tremendous shape, but the thing is, George St. Pierre, sir, you are in Marvel movies, Marvel TV shows. Keep doing that. You have a great career ahead of you. You are handsome as hell. You have a tremendous body. You have all of these things lined up that are lucrative for you. Even Marvel, you have that lined up for you. So I'm just not on board with this. And then if I'm shifting gears towards Oscar, not only do I think Oscar would beat him, even though Oscar to me doesn't seem like he's taking boxing that serious at this point in time,
Wow.
I remember in 2008 watching Oscar De La Hoya fight Steve Forbes in May. That was May 2008. I remember thinking, wow, this guy has lost a step. And then when he got in there in December 2008 against Manny Pacquiao, I knew it was time for him to hang it up. So now, less than 13 years later, you're going to come back for what? For what? For money? I get it, okay? Times are tough. There's a lot going on. Golden Boy, I would say the promotion, it's not as strong as it once was, but it's still a moneymaker. There are still other things Oscar can do. I just don't want to see Oscar get back in the ring, especially with all of the recent things that have happened with him, where he was at that Triller event, didn't paint himself out very great when he was on the commentary
A
table.
little drunk, maybe.
Yeah, allegedly something was going on. I don't know. See, I love Oscar and George too much in their respective sports to see anything happen. Because if George loses, I think it tarnishes his record. And Oscar, his name has been dragged through the mud through the last 10 years. I don't want to see anything else happen to him.
Yeah, and I mean, can we just. There's celebrity boxing, and then there's just idiotic boxing. Oscar De La Hoya is one of the all-time greats, one of the greatest of our generation, or maybe I don't know if that's the generation before us, whatever you want to call it. He's one of the greats. You're gonna put him against one of the greats of MMA. You would think that's a great fight to make. Then you look, Oscar De La Hoya, you're 50.
55.
Nobody wants to see you box. When Tyson came back against Holyfield, or not. Oh, Jesus Christ! When Tyson came back against Roy Jones, we wanted to see that, and we want to see Tyson against Holyfield because it's Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's a celebrity, and his persona is just bigger than life. But Oscar, we don't. No disrespect, fam, but we don't want to see you. We're not paying big bucks to see. We want to see Floyd. We want to see Tyson. We want to see those older names. We don't want to see Oscar. Come on, Oscar. You got beat already. You've had, like you said, against Pacquiao over the hump. We saw that. And with all these Jake Pauls and Logan Pauls and KSI and all these other YouTubers fighting, Oscar's looking like, yo, they getting checks over there. Let me sign my name up. Yo, who can I fight? Who can I fight? Hey Dana, let me get one of your guys. Let me get okay. I'll get a retired guy. Okay, GSP. What do you want? GSP and De La Hoya would be a huge marketing ploy. Like you could paint that any way you want. Like you have the Hispanic community, the Canadian community, MMA community, boxing community. All of that comes together for what? No one's asking for that. If GSP, let me talk to you real quick, bro. If you come back, it's in the octagon because that's where your legacy is. Your legacy isn't gonna be boxing De La Hoya. Even if you think De La Hoya would win, that's interesting. I think GSP would win just based off of he's still actively training. And rumor has it he's been trying to fight Khabib still, even after, the retirement. And, he said he was retiring because of his parents, the situation with his mom, and he promised his mom he wouldn't fight again. George has been pushing for a fight. So if you want to fight somebody, step in the octagon and fight somebody. Fight Usman. Because if Usman beats you, he's the welterweight GOAT to me. Because Usman's on a tear. You don't fight Oscar, and that's why I'm so glad Dana White blocked this. I'm so glad. You're retired, but you're still under contract. No, you can't do that. That's nonsense. Nobody wants to see that. And to your point, if De La Hoya puts him out, that 100% tarnishes his legacy. 100%. And George St. Pierre has one of the cleanest legacies along with Khabib in MMA. So you don't, if you're Dana, you're protecting GSP in a sense. You don't want a black stain on his name. Oh, he got knocked out by De La Hoya when he was 70, though. You know, so I'm glad Dana blocked it. This celebrity boxing thing has to stop because at this point you're not even just taking. If celebrities want to box, I'm cool with that. But when you just have old retired boxers fighting older MMA fighters, no, I don't want to see that,
It's too
fam.
much.
Yeah, come on. What are we doing? There's plenty of boxers to go around. Oscar, why don't you fight someone on Golden Boy? Why don't you fight an actual boxer? Why are you trying to fight an actor? Like you said, he's in Marvel movies now. He's not worried about box. It's nasty. It's
Yeah,
just
see,
It's real nasty.
I want to say this because this isn't just a thing with the UFC or Bellator. This happens in every professional sport. Like the NFL, remember when Rob Gronkowski retired and then last year he came back to the Buccaneers? He was still under contract with the New England Patriots. He had to be traded in order to leave. The same
Right.
thing works with MMA. And at this point in time, if George St. Pierre is going to get in there with anyone, it is going to be anyone but Oscar De La Hoya because Oscar De La Hoya and Dana White hate each other. And also, I do want to apologize to Oscar. He's 48, not 55, but nonetheless, do not want to see him fight. Doesn't matter if he was 38. I saw what happened to him.
50.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see him at all. I'm sorry.
And you know what? The thing is, okay, I grew up watching Oscar De La Hoya beat the brakes off of Ricardo Mayorga and a bunch of other fights. I've also seen Oscar De La Hoya lose a lot of fights as well. I think for his sake, okay, yes, he could chase a bag and get paid handsomely. And you know what? For George, I want to see him get paid a lot of money too, but not in an event like this where the UFC is not trying to do Oscar De La Hoya any favors. You know why? Because Oscar De La Hoya is not trying to do him any favors or Dana White any favors. So it's too much at this point in time. It's one thing if Mike Tyson wants to fight But for Oscar De La Hoya to like jump on the bandwagon and pluck Eddie Alvarez and then pluck George St. Pierre and then probably pluck another MMA fighter, it's just ridiculous. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you see these boxers, and not just retired boxers, but active boxers saying, we're the best in the world, and we're fighters, we're true fighters, but they all call MMA guys to come over to boxing. I like what Clarissa Shields is doing. She's going over to MMA. She's showing you, hey, no, I'm really like that. I'm coming to your sport and I'm gonna take down your y'all ladies who say y'all the GOAT, Amanda Nunes, Kayla Harrison. Give me 2-3 years. I'll catch up. And I like that. If Oscar wants to step in, and I don't even want to see him against GSP in the octagon. That wouldn't be close. But if Oscar wants to step in and do, you know, an event, maybe coexisting with Bellator, maybe, or one championship, you want to fight Eddie Alvarez? Okay, come to the cage. We're not doing it in the ring because for what? What are we doing this for? We saw Jake Paul and Ben Askren, and we're all saying like, "Oh my gosh, Ben Askren doesn't have hands, but he represents MMA." And it looked staged. It looked like he kind of got hit once, dropped, and then walked out with a $500,000 and was like, "All right, thanks, guys." I don't want to see that ever happen again. And I would never think that George St. Pierre, out of all people, would throw a fight like that. But I don't even want to take the risk. And Dana White clearly doesn't want to take the risk either. But sticking with boxing, let's move on to some real boxers and some active boxers, some heavy hitters. Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, 3. Now, I'll go first on this one because I'm not gonna lie. Who doesn't love the Bronze Bomber? That right hand is vicious. He's putting people out left and right. He put Tyson Fury down. I don't know how he got up from that, but now that it's official, Anthony Joshua, you step aside. Don't tell me to step aside. You step aside. Let me handle my unfinished business. Wilder says he's in there. He's got a new coach, got a new corner. He fired the whole staff or whatever. But I'm I'm liking this fight for Wilder. I think Fury's underestimating him. He's saying he's gonna put him away and put the nail in the coffin now. Hey man, if Wilder gets the slightest bit of footwork, it might be over for Fury, and we don't want to see Joshua and Fury after Fury's last been seen in the ring on his back. So Joshua, you're gonna have to stop running from Deontay. But what do you think about this fight getting announced?
Last week when you and I talked about it, it was just a verbal agreement. I really like how this was done. It was done on the undercard of Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez. Tyson Fury showed up to that event in Las Vegas and on camera signed the contract. To me, that was awesome. I
saw
liked how,
that. I like that. And he
yeah,
told Wilder to sign it and send it back. I like that.
yep, it was really cool. And then he crashed the set that Andre Ward, Joe Tessitore, Tim Bradley, all those guys were on. It was just really cool. I like how ESPN coordinated it. I thought it went really well. Now, for the fight itself, okay, if Deontay Wilder wins, I'm going to be completely honest. I will not be mad at a Anthony Joshua Deontay Wilder fight. You know why? Because everyone wants to see Fury Joshua. The fight I've been clamoring for since 2016 was Fury Wilder, because Tyson Fury from the end of 2015 to June 2018 was on the sidelines, and he was really like a non-factor in boxing because he was supposed to fight. He was supposed to have a rematch with Klitschko in 2016, and then he had a bunch of issues in his personal life. So from 2016 up until he lost in 2020 to Tyson Fury, Wilder was that guy that was supposed to fight Anthony Joshua. And
Right.
it really just sent everything into a spiral. And these two, it's just one of those things like if Wilder wins, I will not be mad at all. Because like I said, this is the fight I've been wanting. We were robbed of it once Andy Ruiz knocked out Anthony Joshua in June 2019. And then, we were robbed of it pretty much again last February. So I won't be mad at that. But then if Fury wins, everything will pretty much stay the same. You'll have They'll fight in July, and then Joshua will fight Usyk probably in August. Depending if Joshua gets past Usyk, I'm not banking my entire life savings on that. But if both of them win their next two fights, Fury and Joshua, they're probably going to fight towards the end of the year, if not the beginning of next year. Now, to get back though, if Wilder beats Fury, I could see a reality where Fury may just have to wait for the winner of that fight to get settled, and then he fights Anthony Joshua later on in 2022. So even if Tyson Fury loses to Wilder, I still think he'll eventually get that fight with Joshua. It may not be as much money for a site fee, but I still think he'll get it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, these are three of the baddest dudes on the planet in the best division in boxing. So it's like the heavyweight division is the glamour division, and yeah, like we want to see Wilder play spoiler because, in my opinion, I may be a little biased. Anthony Joshua's been ducking Wilder for a long time,
See that?
and if he beats Fury, there's no more ducking. That's it. Like you have to fight me because we don't want to see it. Say if Wilder wins and Joshua wins, we don't want to see Joshua fight the loser and fight Fury. We want to see the winners fight the winners and see who's the real baddest man on the planet. Like you said, when Ruiz knocked him out, I'm kind of thinking like, man, I thought I thought you were the guy. And then he got his get back, but he didn't knock him out. When someone knocks you out, you got to come back and put a stamp on it. Like, no, like that was a fluke, lucky punch, lucky two punch it. But no, he came back, he won. It was a solid fight, but the big money is with the winners. Joshua, hopefully Wilder, because Wilder's had some gripes, about the gloves being, misfitted and, the jacket or the costume I was wearing was 40 pounds and I was tired when I got to the ring. And it sounded like he was being a sore loser. I'm not going to lie, but hey, you can't be mad at the man for just wanting what's in his contract. You're not paying me step aside money. I have a rematch clause. So give me my rematch and I'm going to show you that the first fight I should have won because I knocked you down twice. I believe he should have won the first fight. I don't know how you can call a fight a draw. Even if I don't care if Fury wins 11 of the 12 rounds, if you get knocked down twice in a fight, I don't see how that's equal. Because there were like rounds in that, and I was going back, I looked at some highlights. There was a couple rounds where they threw 5, 6 punches a piece. Like who really won this round? Who I don't know. So I don't know how that first one was even a draw. So to me, it's 1-1. That's how I'm looking at it. And I feel like a lot of people are looking at it like it's 1-1, and that's why they want the trilogy. But I don't know, man. Wilder need to get his get back and then go chase Anthony Joshua. And that'll be a huge fight. A huge fight. Probably bigger than Wilder Fury, if we're being honest.
I would agree.
But yeah, man, I just want to see that. That's all. But moving right along to another GOAT in her own right. Not Clarissa Shields, but Chris Cyborg fought this past weekend. She had a nice little rematch with Leslie Smith over in Bellator. Obviously, the first fight, she had won. Second fight, Leslie Smith was coming to say, hey, I'm a different fighter. It's been a few years. And what do you know? Chris Cyborg finished her. Me personally, I think it was a little long. She could have finished her a lot earlier, in my opinion. But how'd you like that fight? What'd you think about that?
I loved what Leslie Smith did. Yes, she ended up getting knocked out, and I believe it was less than 30 seconds before surviving the fight. She would have lost the fight via unanimous decision. But if you remember, when they first fought in 2016, in the first round, Leslie Smith was demolished. The fact that she got out of the first round, out of the second, and then into the later part of the fight, that to me, it was like, you know what? Regardless of the outcome, Leslie Smith has showed that she has improved leaps and bounds as a fighter. And I don't put it on Chris Cyborg for not knocking her out sooner, because you know what? She did it, right? It's the same thing
Yeah.
that happened to Sean O'Malley on the Stipe Miocic undercard. It was, you get the knockout when you can get it. You don't necessarily want to chase it. But Leslie Smith, a much improved fighter. And the problem with any fighter who's going up against Chris Cyborg, for one, you can't always let her initiate, but also you can't always be the one that's initiating. So that was the great thing, that Leslie Smith was countering a lot of her shots. But the problem is, when your back is straight to the cage and Chris Cyborg is coming downhill at you,
Bad news.
yeah, it's lights out pretty much most of the time.
Bad
So
news.
I don't fault Leslie Smith whatsoever, because a lot of people thought she was just going to be cannon fodder and just tossed to the side. Look, I'm not big into moral victories, and I'm sure she's not either. I'm sure she was heartbroken that she lost in that fashion, especially being so close to surviving. But the fact that she went 5 rounds with the featherweight champion in Bellator, hats off to you, Leslie Smith. Job well done.
Sounds like you're in the moral victories there. I mean,
Usually I'm not, but I am for this one.
yeah, I mean, what can you say? At the end of the day, when you're at such a level that Chris Cyborg's at, and you're considered one of the greatest, obviously, we know Amanda Nunes is the GOAT because she flatlined Cyborg just a few years ago. But when you look at it, yeah, like you said, we're not here for moral victories, but congrats, Leslie Smith. You lasted the last 10 seconds. You heard the clapper and you're like, oh, I got it. And then the fight got stopped. But if it would have went to decision, it would have been 50-45, maybe 50-44, you know. But like you said, when you're up against the fence, that that's not good news because Cyborg is winging them at you and she hits like a truck. And I think that the fight could have been stopped in the fourth round, at the end of the fourth round, I think. But ultimately, when you're, like I said, when you're at that level, we're not comparing you to other fighters. We're comparing you to yourself. So that's why I'm saying I think Cyborg should have got the finish a little earlier. Um, like you said, not to rush it, but just because we expect you to finish everyone we throw to you because you're our champion. And not only are you the champion, but you're one of the most dominant fighters, male or female, in MMA history. Like, you got to think of the run she was on. And obviously, aside from Amanda Nunes, she's been unbelievable. So when you have a situation where you have a Leslie Smith who, you know, most people would say probably doesn't deserve to be in the ring with her, especially after getting finished in the first round, just a few years back. How much have you changed as a fighter? You're headlining a Bellator card. This is big news. You have to step up. And again, not here for moral victories, but I think she held her own. You No one really thought she was going to win, but you do what you can. And I think she played a decent part in helping Cyborg put another notch in her legacy belt. That's how I look at the fight, to be honest.
Chris Cyborg, when it's all said and done, is probably going to be a top 5 women's MMA fighter of all time, if not top 3. She lost her first professional bout and then went on a 13-year undefeated run. Just think about that.
Ridiculous.
Some of the names she beat: Gina Carano, a ton of names in the UFC. Even in Strikeforce, she was a
Holly
legend
Holm.
there. Yeah, Holly Holm. She has a resume that is as good as gold. And I put, honestly, maybe not in terms of celebrity and name power, but I put her up there, right there with Ronda Rousey, if not, if she's not even better than Ronda Rousey. But the thing is, though, you have to give credit where credit is due, because Chris Cyborg is a pioneer. She was in the game much before Ronda Rousey was, and she really paved the way for women's mixed martial arts to be on the map. She headlined that first women's mixed martial art card in 2009 on Showtime. That had never been done before, but
That
she
was an
did it.
Invicta card too,
Yeah,
I believe. Yeah.
and she was a big reason why Invicta was where it was before that company folded. The fact that she's able to go from promotion to promotion and really catapult it is outstanding. The one part to her career though that really upsets me is how her UFC run ended. Because to be honest with you, she should still be in the UFC. And I think part of the reason why, obviously, she was released after she doctored that video of Dana White talking, but I don't think she wanted to fight Amanda again. And Dana White wanted her to fight Amanda again, and she just didn't want it. That's at least what Dana White said. I I'm not mad that she went to Bellator because she got the highest paying women's mixed martial art contract of all time. So credit to her on that. But when it's all said and done with Chris Cyborg, she should be remembered as a top 5 women's MMA fighter of all time.
Absolutely. And like you said, the whole reason the UFC thing ended was just simply because when you have two fighters in the same division who are clearly better than everybody, I feel like this is similar to um this is similar to featherweight kind of. It's like you have Max and Volt and then everyone's a clear step below them. And as great as Ortega is, and I love me some T City, Max is helping this man. Hey, this is how you block a punch. Let me pick your hands up for you. Okay, boop, boop. Mid fight. And like Ortega was undefeated up until then. He looked invincible. His jiu-jitsu was just ridiculous. But I think it would have been a situation where, ironically, at 45, same as Cyborg and Amanda, but when you have the two best fighters and they fought once, okay, do what you got to do. Okay, now let's get a rematch in. And then after the rematch, or before the rematch, maybe Cyborg was thinking, I don't even want to rematch her because I don't know how I can beat her. Because Cyborg's bread and butter is standing, and Amanda Nunes put her out standing. And that was a firefight. It was quick. It wasn't a feel out process. It was you ready, fight. And they started swinging, and Amanda clipped her, and then she backed her up, and then clipped her again, and just a walk off. And I'm looking like, wait a minute, what did I just witness? And Amanda Nunes, I like to me and my buddy talked about it. We call her the legend killer. If you watch wrestling, WWE, Randy Orton, his
Mm-hmm.
nickname is the Legend Killer because back in the day, he's with Evolution. And he's just beaten a whole bunch of
Ric
legends.
Flair.
Ric Flair, yeah. So I like to call Amanda Nunes the Legend Killer because you get Holly Holm, you get Ronda Rousey, you get Cyborg, and it's like, okay, like, nah, she's it. So maybe Cyborg is looking like, I don't want that rematch, and I'm better than everyone else here. So what am I really doing here? And like you said, she got the biggest check in women's MMA history because Bellator's paying, and they're letting you have endorsement with, your shorts or the flag that you bring in. So the money is in Bellator. Obviously, the more popularity in the UFC, but like you said, man, it's gonna be interesting to see when she does call it a career, to see maybe if she can get that rematch with Amanda somehow, some way, because I would love to see that. Um, but at her age, like you said, top 5, screw that. She's top 3. It's Amanda, it's her, and then if you want to slip Rousey in, if you want to maybe put Holly Holm in, okay. But at the end of it, or Valentina,
Yeah, Valentina.
probably at this point in time, I would say she's surpassed Ronda as a fighter, not popularity wise. So yeah, I think there's no real argument for Cyborg outside of the top 2, even 3. But yeah, man, I like the Bellator cards because they also start a little earlier, and they give you a little hour in between the prelims and the main card, so you can do what you got to do.
Yep.
UFC, take notes, because when you go from prelim to main card and main event, it's midnight. People be tired, man. Give them a break. Let me take a nap. Let me take a half-hour nap. But all right, moving right along. We saw a couple clips of my boy Kevin Holland, aka Big Mouth, at AKA working with your man's Daniel Cormier, Michael. We said it. We said it here first. Go work on that wrestling with DC. Kevin Holland must be a listener because he's down there working. I saw him cleaning the mats. They made him clean mats. They got him wrestling high school kids, and Daniel's teaching him how to wrestle. Hey, give him a couple months. I saw he said he wants to return this summer sometime. Hopefully, it's late summer because he fought like 7 times in 9 months, which is ridiculous. But what do you think about DC training Kevin Holland? What do you think could come from that?
It's a perfect move. I love this. You and I think on our first show, we
Very
brought up
first one.
how this should happen because DC has been talking about it. And even in the middle of some of Kevin Holland's fights, he's literally calling out to DC for wrestling advice. Now he doesn't have to call him out anymore. He is in AKA. He's training with 16-year-olds that have been wrestling their whole lives. This is phenomenal. I don't care if he's getting smashed on the mats by these kids or these young adults. It doesn't matter. Just give him minimum a few weeks, hopefully a few months, training with Daniel Cormier. For me, I kind of compare him to Israel Adesanya, not apples to apples, but when Israel Adesanya first came to the UFC in early 2018, he struggled a little bit with wrestling. Marvin Vettori in that first fight was able to take him down. Then Brad Tavares landed a takedown. By that fourth fight he was in against Derek Brunson in November 2018, he pretty much had flawless takedown defense.
Yeah.
I I think Kevin Holland can get to that point, especially because he's so much more seasoned in the UFC than Israel Adesanya was at that point in time. And Kevin Holland is as talented as they come. So he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, a world-class striker, a kung fu specialist. He's great at all of these things. You're telling me with just a few months under an Olympic champion like Daniel Cormier, he can't excel? I think he can. Just give him a few months there. It'll work out great. Do I think he's going to end up winning a title one day? I don't know. Probably not. But you know what?
Does he
If
even want a title shot?
I don't know. I think he just wants to be a massive name. But in order for him, if he does want to get a title shot, he has to get that wrestling under control. If not, I don't think he's going to have a very long career in the UFC. We may see him in Bellator, but if he's really able to shore up that wrestling, oh my goodness, Kevin Holland will be so hard to stop.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, we touched on in our very first show, the inaugural strikes and submissions show, which is amazing. But I'm finally glad he's out there because it's been a couple months since then, and I'm looking like, okay, Kevin, like I see you post on Instagram with boxing gloves, and you're in your shower and you're working on your roof, and I'm seeing everything except him in the gym working on wrestling. So I'm like, ah, man, is he just gonna jump into a fight and hopefully get a striker, you know, and maybe just hope that he doesn't get taken down? But I'm like, you can't do that. In UFC, you have to be well rounded. And I'm glad you brought up the Izzy point. I was gonna bring that up too, because early on, Vittori took him down and kind of held him. Didn't do much damage, but he took him down and held him there. Brad Tavares got one, even though Izzy popped back up right away. But then you fight Yoel Romero, doesn't even try to take him down. Derek Brunson couldn't take him down, tried, knocked him out. And then you're like, okay, Izzy's takedown defense is legit. And then you go up even against Gastelum, like, okay, taking down a little bit, but not much damage being done. And when Kevin Holland was getting taken down, against Brunson, wasn't much damage being done, but he was being controlled. And that was the issue. It wasn't so much, okay, you get taken down, but do you get up or do you just lay there and accept it? So, like you said, Olympic wrestling with DC and AKA, they got a whole bunch of guys over there who are just grapplers in general. So, you're going to learn how to get up. And if you don't, you're going to be on the mat all night. And Kevin Holland doesn't want to be on the mat all night. His last 50 minutes in the octagon has been on the mat. So he's gonna be fine. I don't think he'll bounce to Bellator. Even though he's on like a little skid, you gotta think he was 5-0 before that for the year.
Oh yeah.
So you end the year knocking out Jacare off your back in one of the craziest knockouts I've ever seen, and then you lose a couple fights. Yeah, you lose momentum, you lose a little steam off your name, But at the end of the day, like you said, he's a massive name now. He's a main event fighter now. Whoever gets booked with him, it's going to be a main event or a co-main event. He's not losing that name recognition. He still has his fans. His fan base is still as strong as ever. And if he can get the wrestling down, wrestling defense down, we don't need to see him wrestle,
No.
but just the wrestling defense down, and he can show that striking, because he put Buckley out with a mean one.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting here like, that was just a straight, like that straight down the pipe, boom. And I'm sitting here like, whoa, like his hands are like that. Okay, like let's pay attention to this guy. And then you saw the run he started to go on, and deservedly so, getting all the recognition that he's been getting. Man, if the wrestling comes, his whole game will be nice and well rounded. And if you remember against Thiago Santos, he got taken down and held there too early on in his career. So it's been an issue for him. You know, he's been able to skate through 2020 without the wrestling, but now you got DC. Maybe even DC might corner him. I don't know if he's allowed to. Uh,
No, I think he
if
is.
he's
I think he would be. He just can't. Obviously, I don't think he'll be able to commentate that night. But I know a lot of boxing commentators do that. Joe Goosen does it for Fox. Like he'll be on a broadcast team and then move over to cornering.
Yeah, and I mean that would be great to see. I don't know how much, and it's still early. We just seen this the last couple weeks, but I don't know how much he really trusts DC to be in his corner, because his corner is a lot of trusted men. You know, Travis Luter, who he has his black belt under, and his striking coach as well. But I do know one guy who has commentated and then slid into the corner, and we can transition to him. Paul Felder.
Yep.
He did it, and when he did it, I'm thinking like, okay, it was on like I think the last or the second to last fight to a prelim. I can't remember who he cornered, but it was one of
Jared
his
Gordon.
team. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So it's one of his teammates, and I didn't even know you could do that. But he was like, "All right, guys, catch you in a minute." Goes in the back. You know, he's hitting mitts, and then he goes out and he corners them, and he comes back on, commentates like nothing's wrong, and he retired over this weekend. And it was kind of sad to see, the MMA community as a whole, like, oh my God, Irish Dragon, no, he's going away. For me, I didn't look at it as uh as sad with the melancholy eyes as everybody. Oh my God, like we're gonna miss you. Yeah, we're gonna miss Paul Felder. He was a very exciting fighter, but let's be real. If it wasn't for him taking that RDA fight on a week's notice, it's been a while since we've seen him. I think Dan Hooker beat him last, and even in the Hooker fight, he didn't look very good. So you got people like me, and I'm snitching now, but even you said he was ducking Islam. And it looks like a lot of guys in the top 10 were ducking Islam. So he comes out finally. He's like, hey, guys, I'm retired. I wasn't ducking anybody. But I respect him for retiring and not holding that spot, because there's a lot of guys who are still holding up their spots in the rankings. And a lot of fighters don't care about the rankings, but promoters do, because that's how they make matchups. So overall, I'll let you talk. What do you feel about Paul Felder retiring?
I'm so happy. To be honest with you, I am happy because so many times in mixed martial arts, we see the fighters we love stay a little bit too long, and it just has terrible outcomes for their health, for their future, for their family. I think the way he did it was the best way possible. Not holding up that division. Like Nader said here, he always said, look, if I'm going to hold up a division, I'm out. And not only that, the reason why I am so happy that Paul Felder is leaving, I'm not happy that he is leaving because he was always one of my favorite fighters. I love him, but I'm happy he's leaving because he has a career lined up for him. He has a
Right.
career at the UFC, has a ton of endorsements and sponsorships. Also, the guy went to college as a theater major, okay? If he wanted to be an actor, he probably could. Like the guy has a ton going for him. He's 37 years old, still has his mental faculties in order. He thought about retiring after the Dan Hooker fight and then took the RDA fight on 4 days, not even 5 days notice. 4 days notice if you really think about it in terms of making weight. The
Made
guy,
the weight,
yeah, he made the weight. Had to. I mean, we
professional.
talk about Jorge Masvidal having to cut so much weight. Listen, Paul Felder had to cut just as much weight in the same amount of time, if not less time. But the reason why Paul Felder took that fight is because it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. And if he had a longer training camp, he might have beaten RDA. So the thing is, with someone like Paul Felder, he's still going to be in the game. He's still going to be around. And the most important thing is that he's an ambassador. Why wouldn't you want someone like that leaving while they're on top? No, he didn't get the championship fight that he desired, but it wouldn't have made sense for him to fight Islam. And DC even said he was ducking Islam because
He did.
at that point in time, it just didn't. It right now, if Paul Felder would have taken that fight, it would not make sense because Islam, in my opinion, is about a year or two away from a title fight. He's not just going to launch you right in. So Paul Felder, even if he were to beat Islam, he still has a ton of guys to go. And then now, I think as of today, he was dropped to 11th in the ranking before they just find. I think they're going to eventually just remove him because he retired. But Paul Felder, congratulations, a hell of a career. He has a great career waiting for him. In my opinion, it's tough because the UFC has so many great commentators, but he might be the best. And I think with more work on the mic, with him and Michael Bisping together,
It's good chemistry between them.
oh my god! And then with Brendan Fitzsimmons, I believe is the blow by blow announcer. I could be
Mhm.
wrong if I messed up the last name. I
We have
apologize.
Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald. There we go. I mean, those three together, they're a riot. I love that. I love those three. They're terrific. So, look, he has a great career. I think this is the right move. Time to go make a ton of money down the line. Congrats, Paul Felder.
Yeah, and I mean, Nader touched on it in a comment. I was gonna say that you see guys stay too long,
Mm-hmm.
and it it turns out that yeah, I'm fighting my contract out. I'm one last title shot, and it rarely ever works. Very rarely. And this is not a sport you want to test to see if this will work because you're gonna get knocked out, you're gonna get hurt, your eye's gonna get broken, your orbital's gonna get broken, your jaw's gonna get broken, your arm, like Jacare, your arm's gonna get broken, or like something bad can physically happen to you.
Yeah.
This isn't a game. You don't want if your heart's not in it, this is not the sport for you, especially in the UFC, and especially when you're a ranked fighter, because all the other ranked fighters are coming for one thing and one thing only, your spot. Because if they get your spot, then they can take the next guy's spot and the next guy and the next guy and so on and so forth until they get that number one spot or the number one contender spot to get that belt. And I do agree. I think Felder and Bisping are a great duo, and I like when they call fights. My personal favorite, I mean, I'm biased. I like Joe Rogan. But when Dominic Cruz and Joe Rogan are together, it's just mind blowing how much information they spew. It's like, how long have you guys been researching this stuff?
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, excuse me. He has his announcing career lined up. So it's not like, you know, oh, retired and go to the shadows, we'll never see you again. Like, no, we're still gonna see you every other Saturday. Just like DC. When DC retired, he's still doing, UFC pre-fight shows or the weigh-in shows. And Paul Felder, he's doing the UFC roundtable with Michael Chiesa. And
Yep.
that I saw that, and he said he went to theater school, and I was like, wow, really? That's a weird, like, you wouldn't expect a fighter to be in theater school, like, but anyway, or be a theater major. But yeah, it's good to see him go out, even though he didn't go out with a win or go out on top. It's good to see him go out with his wits about him. He's still healthy, fairly healthy. I saw it's not a post fight because he didn't fight, but in the UFC post fight, he had stated that he's now doing like triathlons and stuff like that. He's trying to, start doing that. And he said he got down to about 170 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he's more so focused on like leaning up and slimming down to get in triathlon shape. Because if you're 170, let's be real, you're not fighting at 55
No.
because those guys at 55 are close to 200 pounds or 180 ish. You're not 170 walking around at 170 out of camp and trying to fight at 55. So I'm glad that he gave his spot up. He doesn't want to hold up the division. Very commendable. Him, Khabib, even John Jones vacating light heavyweight title. Like I just love when guys are just aware and because they've been there where guys have been holding up the division and hey, can I fight you to show me you're the number 2 guy in the world. Beat me. No, I'm not fighting you. You're a number 7 guy. And it's like, come on, man. Like it takes 2 to tango and it
Mhm.
takes 2 to sign. More importantly to tango. It takes 2 to sign because we have one guy calling out another guy and another guy might be calling him out back and oh yeah, let's book the fight. But one guy isn't signing and we don't hear about it until it's after the fact. Like you said, DC aired him out. Hey, Paul Felder turned it down. RDA turned it down. A couple other top 10 guys turned it down. I think when that came out, that's when Paul Felder started getting a lot of backlash and he was like, "All right, guys, enough is enough. Like I'm not turning down fights because I'm scared of Islam. I'm turning down fights because I don't want to fight."
Yeah.
And I respect that's very commendable. So anytime, we have a guy retire that we love, one of our favorite fighters, one of the more entertaining fighters, and fun fact of the day, the last guy not only to beat Oliveira, but he knocked him out.
Yeah.
So Oliveira's the 55 champ now. It looks good for Paul Felder to retire now. Like, hey
Mhm.
man, I beat the champ. I'm good to go. Like
Yeah, you're not getting that one back, Charles
you're
Oliveira.
not
You are
getting
not
it
getting that
back.
one back.
Um, but yeah, I think it's good when fighters go out on
Mhm.
their own wits. Don't let someone else retire you. Like Cerrone, unfortunately, someone else is gonna have to retire him because Dana keeps giving him fights. I don't know why. Jacare, Muniz probably retired him, for being honest. Uh, Uriah Hall, it wasn't vicious, but you can say he retired Anderson Silva. Even though Anderson's boxing now, so
Maybe even Chris Weidman. I mean, hopefully not. Hopefully not. But
hopefully
you
not.
never know.
Yeah, yeah. You never want to see fight, and that's the thing. It takes one kick. First 10 seconds of the fight, throws leg kick, snaps. If Felder was in that scenario where he took a fight with Islam just to, okay, I'm not a coward, I'm taking this fight. He throws one kick, snaps his leg. Now he has to rehab for 4 months. He's gonna be like, man, what the hell? Like
Yeah.
I didn't even want to fight.
Can't even be a
And
triathlete anymore.
yeah, like this is one profession where you don't want to push it. So I'm glad he's getting out under his own will. And he even said, like, I got a new deal. I didn't even fight on my new deal yet. He's like, I've been my whole career, I wanted this dollar amount or close to it. And I got that dollar amount, and it's not motivating for me. Training isn't motivating. If you're not motivated to fight, don't fight, man.
You
But
can't be half in, half out. That's the one thing. So many times, so many guys are thinking, all right, well, I'll fight, but I have this other thing. When that happens, guys get knocked out. Paul Felder did the right thing. Also, Paul Felder, like you talked about, he's a triathlete. And he even talked about how one regret he had was taking fights he shouldn't have when Joe Silva was like the premier matchmaker. And then his metabolism, because he was a big 155er. And there was even talks of him going up to 170 permanently. But he said, look, the most important thing is being a clean athlete year round. And I think now, as a triathlete, that's what he's going to be. So he's going to be in phenomenal, tip top shape. And I'm going to be paying attention to how well he does on these bike races and all these runs, like, because I love Paul Felder and I know he's been talking about it. So God bless him. I wish him the very best. You can't be mad at him for leaving because he made a good amount of
yeah.
money, but he's going to make a ton more as a commentator.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, his his health is more important because if you're a big 170 guy and you're or excuse me, a big 155er and you're blowing up out of camp to, 185 or 190, hey, you want to fight RDA in 5 days and you're thinking in your head like, yeah, bless you. You're thinking in your head like yeah, I want to fight him, and then you have to cut all that weight. It's not good for your body, man. And then getting beat up by RDA is also not good for your body either. But hats off to Paul Felder, man. I'm poking fun. I like to make
Mhm.
jokes about fighters who would whoop my ass, but it's okay. Moral of the story is get out while you can.
Yeah.
Get the getting while the getting is good, and then get ghost or whatever Marshawn Lynch said. Get your chicken and get it before you get got,
Yeah.
because you
Protect
will
your
get
chicken
got.
and your mentals. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna get got, especially in the fight business. And at 155, killers. This isn't a cupcake division or a
No.
soft division. So, shouts out Paul Felder, man. Love to see it. Love to see him commentate still. Glad he'll still be around, and I'm sure he's still going to be training here and there. Giving his guys some tips and tricks to help get him to the ranks where he rose and even higher. So good for him. Get out while you can. But other than that, Mike, is there anything else that we didn't touch on? I feel like we gave the streets what they needed this week.
I think we got everything. Maybe next week we could talk about John Jones with that Richard Schaefer stuff, but I don't think we need to touch on it. We've talked enough, but phenomenal show though. Once again,
Once again, man, we do this every week, every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time. There's no reason to be anywhere else right now. Like, you don't want to see the Bucks blow the Heat out right now. Who wants to see that? It's 2-0. But that's going to wrap us up, guys. Make sure you follow TWSN on Instagram, Twitter. You subscribe to us on YouTube. Download the mobile app on all platforms, any type of phone you have. Follow me. My handle's right here at @DoRight_. And another edition of Strikes and Submissions. No decisions. We out. Peace.